Hello, and welcome to I Am Dad Podcast with your fatherhood authority, Kenneth Braswell. 30 minutes of wisdom, information, resources, and nuggets on your fatherhood journey. Or maybe you're just curious and want to hear some real talk about fatherhood, family, and the minds of men. Well, guess what? We got you too. Sit back, grab your pad and pen, and maybe even bring a little something to sip on. Enjoy 30 straight minutes of fatherhood, family, and fun with the Fatherhood Authority, Kenneth Braswell.
Welcome to another inspiring episode of I Am Dad Podcast, where we explore the dynamic world of fatherhood, parenting, and family well-being. I'm your host, Kenneth Braswell, and today we have an extraordinary guest who has dedicated her career to supporting families and fostering strong communities. Joining us today is Sandy Cloer, the Division Director for the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians Tribal Child Support. Sandy's remarkable journey began with a degree in business from Winsalm College, which paved the way for an 18-year tenure in child support with the state of North Carolina. In 2009, she brought her extensive experience and deep understanding of the EBCI community to her role with the EBCI, helping to develop their child support program and subsequently launching their Tribal TANF Program in 2012 and their Representative Payee Program in 2015. Sandy's leadership extends beyond her immediate responsibility. She oversees a dedicated team of 17 employees, including a process server and a court clerk to the Cherokee Tribal Court. Her contributions to the field are widely recognized, serving 6 years on the board of directors for the North Carolina Child Support Council, acting as secretary for the National Tribal Child Support Directors Association, and currently presiding as president of the National Tribal Child Support Association. Beyond her professional achievements, Sandy is a proud mother of 2 children, Michelle and James. Her commitment to family and community is truly inspiring, and we are thrilled to have her share her insights and experiences with us today. So sit back and get ready for an enlightening conversation with Sandy Cloer on the I Am Dad podcast. Welcome, Sandy. How are you today?
Good morning. I'm doing well and hope you are. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's so great to have you on. I've been wanting to talk to you. I've been talking to a lot of child support folks, and I'm just really trying to dig in to really understanding, how folks are thinking about this. I have this idea about this child support model, education awareness model that I'm trying to create. In every conversation that I have with someone who is any way related to child support is helping me think that. And so, Sandy, we start our show off one way with every guest because I think it gives them into the individuals we are talking to, particularly around this subject matter of responsible fatherhood. And that is simply, tell us your daddy story.
My daddy story? Wow. I don't know that I have a really good daddy story, truthfully.
A daddy story is a daddy story. However it comes out, it don't have to be good. It's your story. It doesn't have to be a good story. It's your story.
My story. Well, I had a great daddy. I'll say that. Let me just start off there. Who raised us to be servants to other people. We always have, since I was a youngster, volunteered to do things for different folks in our community, not just dads, but anybody, to where we could make sure that the life that other people lived was what they should have. We weren't the richest people in the world. But we were comfortable, and we wanted to make sure that everybody was able to have a good quality of life. So we volunteered in our churches, we volunteered in our school. My dad was a great representative on the county rescue squad, and so we had an opportunity to help people that were having disasters in their own lives and all. So I started off that way, and I truly believe that we are all here for service to other individuals.
Awesome. I love that. Now, we know that everybody has a personal entry point into the work that they do. Sometimes it's planned, sometimes it's not planned.
Right.
Sometimes we end up where we end up, right? But talk to me a little bit about how you got into specifically working around child support.
Well, when I got out of college, I worked a variety of jobs. My degree's in business, and so I just never did feel like I was at home in the jobs that I had. And one day I had a friend ask me if I would apply for a child support position with the state of North Carolina. And I didn't know anything about child support at all. I was able to start out on the entry level. I started out answering phones and doing applications and talking to people. And that led into becoming a child support agent for North Carolina for both establishment and enforcement. Our office in North Carolina covered 5 counties in western North Carolina and the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indian Reservation. So we traveled extensively to different courts, to different communities to talk to people. But my primary caseload in the last 15 years was the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians, where I just felt at home. It's 10 miles from my home in Rock City. So I just kind of found my niche here. The people, the community, the court system, it just worked for me.
Yeah, now you sound like me and my entry point into child support. And so when I was the director of the New York State Fatherhood Initiative, the work around fatherhood was centered in the Employment and Workforce Development Agency of TANF, or section of TANF. And when David Hansel, who was my boss at the time, came into OTDA, he called me to his office and he said, "Kenny, I think I want to move the fatherhood program into child support." And I was like, "Oh no, we can't do that." I was like, "I can't go home telling people that I'm working around fatherhood and child support." And him and I went back and forth and back and forth. And he ultimately said to me, he said, "I'm not sending you there because I believe that that's where the work solely belongs. I'm sending you there because I think that you have the ability to impact our child support program." And I really appreciated him for that.
Yes.
But I was there for 5 years before I left OTDA and got back into my calling work, which was Fathers Incorporated. But I remember walking into that office, Sandy, and having this experience of whoa, this is different. Like when you started working for child support, what were your initial thoughts and feelings about where you were at that moment?
Well, I was absolutely petrified. I don't mind to tell you. I didn't know anything about child support, had never dealt with it in my family personally. So it was a lot of learning for me, a big learning curve for me. It was very daunting. I thought, with the processes of child support, starting at the bottom and working your way through an order and working with families. And of course, you're going to get different perspectives from both sides in your cases and all. It was very overwhelming for me at first, but about 6 months into the job, I knew I'd found my calling. I love being able to help people, and especially children. Children are, I believe, the greatest resource that we have all over the United States. They are going to be the future for all of us. So I feel like that we need to be able to support them not only emotionally, but financially for whatever that they need in their lives. So I've kind of let that guide me in my career, is what can I do to make sure that this child's life is better.
Mm-hmm. What have you learned over the years in child support that you think people don't know?
Child support sometimes gets a bad rap, and you know as well as I do that even the Federal Office of Child Support Services now used to be Child Support Enforcement. So when you hear that word enforcement, it's kind of intimidating. I was glad to see that all changed. I think that people feel like that you are just trying to take more from them, especially a non-custodial parent. They feel like that they don't have any rights, that they don't, that they're the bad person in a situation. And that's not true. That's not true. There's a lot of individuals out there who are so attentive to their children. They meet all of their needs. Just because you're in a child support case doesn't mean that you've done something wrong. It just means that those parents are not able to get to make it work together. But normally, in all the cases I've ever dealt with, it's all about the betterment of the child. And that's what parents want. As a parent myself, that's all I want for my children, to have a better life. And I'm sure anybody else would too. So I think that right there is the one thing that's a misconception about child support. We're not here to make life miserable for anybody. We're here to try and help this family, help these children to become who they're supposed to be and live their full potential in their lives.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to jump forward, and then I'm going to jump back in this conversation because I want to get some context from us jumping forward so that when we go back, people will understand where we're coming from. And so you find yourself with the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians, and you're now in the midst of really looking at what this looks like for the tribal community. How is child support different in this space than it is in the more traditional space?
As far as tribal, we have a lot of the cultural aspects built into our program as well. And that's not something that you see in the child support world outside of a tribal nation, I don't think. We have different laws. Eastern Band is a sovereign nation, much like the country of Canada. We have a totally different set of laws on our book. For Eastern Band, we actually adopted the North Carolina statutes and the North Carolina guidelines for our child support program. But the council has also gone in and added some things to that. In this state world, you can revoke driver's license if someone's behind. We don't do that on the boundary. Our council said if you don't have a driver's license, how are you going to go to work? How are you going to be able to make a living? How are you going to be able to provide this child if you don't have the transportation to do that? That's just one of the pieces that we do a little bit differently on the boundary. We are very aware of the culture here, though, and a lot of times we have individuals that will do beading, do crafts, those kind of things, and they sell those wares to pay their child support, and we're fine with that as long as our clients are fine with that. Or we have folks that want to sort of trade services, a car repair, chopping wood, fishing is a big thing too, especially on the West Coast with tribes, to be able to do that in order to pay your child support. It's not just necessarily financials, money, because those kind of services too, even buying food, that helps the family, and that's what we're all about, is to try and help our families.
Mm-hmm. Now, you were instrumental in helping many tribal communities create their child support programs. Walk me through a little bit of the process, because I know the process is a little different because there are councils that you have to talk to, there are the community you have to talk to, there are these different aspects of folks that you have to talk to when you're creating anything for a tribal community. Walk us through that process.
So I can just walk through for Eastern Band. I have, of course, talked to other directors and all, and folks that are in a startup program and all. But in 2009, the state of North Carolina, due to budget cuts, had to close the office that I worked in Bryson City, and that office served 5 counties and the boundary. So rather than having our cases, the tribal cases, go off the boundary into state court, we wanted to make sure that our court here, the tribal court for the Eastern Band, was still able to be involved in those cases rather than putting it into the state world, so to speak. So we met with the then chief, who's also our current chief now, Michelle Hicks, and just laid it all out and said, this is what's going to happen. We have the Eastern Band lies in 5 counties in western North Carolina. So each of our cases, wherever that individual lives, is going to be going into those courts, not into our tribal court. And we felt like that would change a lot of things as far as tribal cases were. And Chief Hicks agreed. So we started the process to contract out in the beginning to another entity to provide child support services. And then in 2012, we wrote a federal plan for Eastern Band and were approved to have our own tribal child support program. Mm-hmm. We had to, of course, go in front of council. We had to make our case. Chief Hicks was wonderful, as he always is, about helping us with those kind of things, because he and all the former chiefs are all about our children. We want to make for sure that they're taken care of. So we were able to pass that for tribal council. And as I said, we adopted a lot of North Carolina statutes, and we adopted the guidelines for North Carolina. But then as time went on, the council also added some pieces into it, such as the driver's license revocation and timeframes. They changed timeframes a little bit for us as well, as far as things that were served, things that the length of time from a filing of a complaint to when we can have it into court, just those kinds of things. But pretty much we operate a lot as the state of North Carolina does right now. We have our own system. We're not on the North Carolina system. We have a tribal system called MTS, which is the model tribal system. That system was actually piloted here in 2013 by the feds. It's a federal program. So we're a little bit different in that world as well. We have roughly between 13 and 1,400 cases at any given time. We've gone a little bit above that, sometimes to 1,600, but we maintain pretty much anywhere from 1,200 to 1,400 cases in our office.
Were there any pushbacks to creating a child support program? I'm sure there was.
There was not. And I will say that council wanted to be able to provide the services to tribal members here. We felt like that, and we knew that whenever we had our office off the boundary. When I was working in the state office, I would come to Cherokee and one day a week, and that was to do interviews, to do, if people needed to come and talk or whatever. But the one thing that we didn't get a lot of was our elders and grandparents. A lot of those individuals don't want to go off boundary for services. So when we moved our office onto the boundary, in the first year we had a 28% growth, just because people felt comfortable coming to our office in Cherokee on the boundary. We were able to do a lot of help with grandchildren. A lot of grandparents have children here, have the custody of children here. So that was a big, big step for a lot of individuals. And I think tribal council knew that we would probably serve more people if we were on the boundary and had our own program rather than working through the state. There's always that misconception about a state does this and a state does that, and so for Eastern Band, we wanted to do it the Eastern Band way. And that's, again, to serve our children and our people.
Yeah, there is a history of, because I've spoken at tribal conferences and child support conferences and fatherhood conferences, and there is always a small reaction to government for many reasons, historical, past, even present reasons why there is that kind of reaction to government. But when you look at family dynamics within the tribal communities, and we kind of, especially when we talk about responsible fatherhood, so there's these societal stereotypes about fathers. They don't want to pay child support. They want to run from their responsibility. They don't want to be active in the life of their children. Is that a perspective that you hear when you're working with tribal families, or is it somewhat different?
We hear that some. Excuse me. We do hear that some, but for the most part, I think that we have a really good program. Our individuals want to be able to support their children. It's not always in the manner that we would like to see, but we see a lot of folks doing that. Our tribal court's very good about helping with those situations in our family safety program, where children are removed from the homes, unfortunately. They work very hard to do reunification with a family, and because we all know that children do better in their own home with their parents rather than a stranger's home. So the tribe is very on top of those kind of things, making sure that we are serving the people that we need to serve. And sometimes, and I know this is that way in a lot of places too, sometimes the best you can do is still not enough. And but we try our best to work with everybody to be able to do for children on a day-to-day basis.
How difficult or easy was it to take into consideration the spiritual aspect of tribal communities when you're trying to process something, right? Create a process of something that seems governmental, but you also
Right.
have to keep in
Right.
mind that this is a spiritual community and that is a guiding factor in everything that they do.
Well, and a lot of our elders, their faith base in family. They help a lot with, I think, with the younger population now, as I would call it. Talking about the things that you need to be doing to help your family, the things that you need to be doing to raise your children. We have a big network of elders here on the boundary, and they are rich in history, rich in culture, and that's what they want Eastern Band to be all about, and pretty much it is. It pretty much is. So.
Yeah, that's a lesson that the broader society could take, which is a more inclusive, solution-based action as it relates to bringing in elders. I always say, to our fathers that this particular generation is probably the third of the last generations of children that may actually know more than their parents.
True.
And for all kinds of reasons, they know more. The ease of getting to information, their ability to multitask, all of those things work well for our children today. But what they don't have that we have is wisdom. And you can't just get that. You have to have lived experiences to get wisdom. And I don't think that we put enough emphasis on ensuring that there is a level of wisdom in everything that we do when it comes to families. And
Right.
that's what I like about the tribal community. Have you seen any of that?
We have. Oh, absolutely. We have. We see it daily. We have a big push at Eastern Bend right now for language. The chief is just, he is working so hard to make sure that we don't lose the language of Eastern Bend. We have a school that's set just for that children can actually go into. I believe it's age 3, might be 4. It's a big commitment for parents because you have to be able to speak Cherokee, and they ask that you do that in your home as well as in school, and kind of going away from the English language, so to speak. I think that's a big, rich piece in history here for Eastern Band.
Wow. You're also instrumental in helping them create their TANF program. Now,
Yes.
did that come first? Did child support come first or the TANF come first? Which one came
Child
first?
support came first, and then we were looking around to see how else that we might be able to help individuals. And so we knew that we had individuals going off the boundary for TANF services into each one of the communities. And so we thought, well, if we can do one, why can't we do both? So we, again, in 2012, wrote a TANF plan, and it was approved through ACF. We've been doing TANF since 2012. We opened the doors in 13. We got approved the latter part of 2012, but opened our doors in 2013. And we keep a pretty steady caseload there as well. But the things that TANF can do is in a lot of instances when a client comes in and doesn't have the resources that they need for their child. They don't have money, they don't have housing, they don't have food. Those are the things that TANF can help with immediately by doing the cash assistance to them. We do food cards, we do school clothes for our kids in our TANF cases every year. We're able to provide that. At least it is something that helps that parent until we can get a child support obligation in place. So it's been huge here at Eastern Band to be able to do that.
When you look at both of those things, child support and TANF, I know one of the things that we're doing now is going around the country talking to TANF agencies and talking to child support agencies and child welfare agencies about the service component specifically for fathers and non-custodial parents,
Yes.
where
Yes.
we may be missing the boat in many places around that. When you think about the programs that you've created, particularly in the EBCI, how did you guys take into consideration that you also had to serve these dads?
Well, we work really hard in our TANF program to find people employment. That's a piece of TANF. It has to be, unless you're a grandparent and you're not in that grant and all. We have a really good working relationship with our TARO department here, which is the employment services with Eastern Band, that we can help our fathers if that is something that they need. And a lot of times it is. Cherokee, unfortunately, is a seasonal community. We have a lot of tourists from April through the end of October, and then it just kind of dries up for a few months. And we don't have a steady employer here, other than we do there's a lot of construction companies here. Of course, there's always the hospitals, but right now our TARO group are doing trainings, and they are actually training on electrical, on plumbing, helping actually OSHA inspectors. I found that interesting the other day when I read that new piece that they were doing. So they're actually doing a 6-week training program for any individual that might want to go into those areas. And of course, they are very good to work with us if we have a TANF client that needs a job, or even a child support person. We have referred folks over there from that if they just don't have any other opportunities. Of course, we have our Harrah's Casino here, and they employ about 4,500 people between the casino, the Tribe, and we have another casino in Murphy. So there is an opportunity for employment through that, but that's not necessarily for everybody. You know, you got to find your niche, just like you and I. You have to find that niche as to what you want to do. So we try very hard to help fathers with that. We also help with doing application, life skills sometimes, as we call them here. We can help with tools, we can help with clothes, all of that through the TANF program in order to make them more productive in the society. And that helps not only them for their self-esteem, but it also helps their children, because, we're going to be able to help those children receive child support if we have an employed parent. It just makes life a little bit easier.
Is there an intentional process that you guys go through to ensure that fathers in those communities understand that those services are available to them?
We have that all over. We advertise that all over the boundary. People, pretty much know that. We have a tribal networking that we work through. We have a satellite office in our Robbinsville, which is about 50 miles from us, but also part of the boundary. We have a satellite office there in the Snowbird community that provides child support and TANF both over there. We can attend all of our community meetings so that we can spread the word as to what services that we have. And a lot of times that's elders, but at least they know, and they can tell folks, you can get a job. We know where. And we also offer our applications at our community meetings, to help anybody that might need that as well. Mm-hmm. So we have a pretty good networking, is what I would call that. Yes.
Okay. The native communities around the country tend to get lost in the broader conversation because of the numbers, right? And so do you find yourself sometimes having to yell a little louder so that people can hear you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think we all do that in any aspect of our life. Sometimes if we're not seeing what we need, then we need to step it up a notch. That's what I tell my staff here. If you're not getting new individuals coming in here, then we need to step it up, because obviously we are not getting the word out as to what we can offer. We have a lot of different programs that go on. We just finished doing the Day of the Child, which is a big program, one-day event here on the boundary that will have hundreds of children come and parents. And so we always set up our booths, and we always pass out our literature and help any way that we can.
Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about the Payee Program that you created. Is that related both to the Representative Payee Program? Is that connected to child support and TANF also?
It is not. That is just a totally separate program. Whenever the DSS has stepped back with what they call the Representative Payee Program. We were asked by Eastern Band to see if we could help that. And so we did. We were able to help by writing a program that could help those individuals that are financially exploited, those individuals that are not mentally stable. We do that through a referral process through the Eastern Band. That all has to come through the Family Safety Program, or also the court will also occasionally send us clients that we can help in. It's one of the happy points, I think, in this office, because we have, in that program, you can stand and hand out a check all day long, but we've taken it to the next level in that we have an individual that does shopping for them. We deliver to them. We want to make sure that they are being spent down so that they can keep their Medicaid a lot of times. And other benefits. So we've kind of stepped that up a notch, so to speak, and tried to provide just a little bit better services to those individuals. We have quite a few in nursing homes, and so we do monthly visits to nursing home, and we try to have contact with those clients twice a month anyway, to make sure that they're being taken care of and that their needs are being met. A lot of times we can do that.
Okay. Currently, you are sitting as the president of the National Tribal Child Support Association. That's got to stretch you a little bit, huh?
That's kind of like having a second job, is what I call it. I've been fortunate to be the president. This was my third year. I have one more year after this. It's been an experience, but it's been wonderful. I've been able to travel to a lot of places that I would not have, to different conferences with our sister organizations in WICSIC and ORIXA and INSEA, all of those. I always come home with something new. There's always somebody that's doing something just a little bit different or just a little bit better. So I have appreciated that piece of this job a lot. Of course, we'll be doing our conference here in Cherokee this year, and we're happy that you're going to come and speak for us.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
I want to learn. There's a couple of other things I've actually wanted to do. I'll talk to you offline about those things.
Okay.
But, understanding that there is this nuance with a singular tribal community in crafting their child support program and possibly their TANF programs. Now you're dealing with programs across the country.
Right.
And I have to believe that there are some difficulties in trying to standardize. Would that be a good question? Or at least
kind of, sort of. Every tribe has their different cultures, and we encourage tribes to incorporate that culture in their programs. I mean, that's kind of what we're all about. There are 574 federally recognized tribes in the United States. 61 of those have federal tribal child support programs. We just took on the new program, I say we, OCSS did, for the Mississippi Band of Choctaw Indians. They are the new coming on. They're doing the TANF program and the child support program. So we're always happy when those folks reach out, just asking the questions. How do you start? What do you do? We have a board of 15 people, and so everybody on the board has been in child support for quite some time. So we're good. We're a good resource, I think, to have NTCSA is to have for tribes doing child support and TANF both, and how to get started in that world.
Mm-hmm. You have a lot of work to go, because you said how many out of 500 and something?
574, yes.
Yeah, that's a lot of folks out there that are looking to figure out how to add this to their communities, right?
Right, there are. And some of those tribes are not very big. They have less than 1,000 members. Eastern Band has 16,500 members. Navajo in New Mexico and Arizona, I don't have any idea how many individuals they have in their tribe, but I do know they have about 25,000 child support cases. So that tells me there's a lot of individuals there. But some tribes are small, and so they don't feel like they've been able to do programs. And we've had some conversations with different people. You do need to be able to start, the program now. And of course, OCSS recently did the waived the match for programs. So now it's 100% funded, and tribes don't have to rely on their community and their tribal council to get monies for their program. There have been a few that have started and have not been able to support it because they don't have the revenue coming into their tribe to be able to do that program. So our hope is that those folks will jump back on and hopefully be able to do a program. And sometimes, the tribe 1,000 or less, they don't need a very big program, but just being able to have their own program, following their own rules and guidelines and having it in the tribal court, because 9 times out of 10, those that don't have the programs are in state courts. And that's just a different ballgame, the culture and everything for tribes, I think. So I think we all feel better about that piece now, that anybody can have a child support program and get that 100% funding for it.
I know if you're driven like I am, that there are things about your work that keep you up at night.
Oh,
As you
gosh.
try to figure out how to solve them. What are some of the things that keeps you up at night?
Just making sure that everybody is being served timely. That is my biggest thing. Nobody walks into a place of business. I don't walk into a bank or somewhere else that we don't need assistance. And I am very big on personal assistance in our office. I know that it takes a lot for some people to walk in and ask for help. So I want us to be able to fulfill that need as quickly and timely as we can. That's about my biggest pet peeve, I believe.
And contrast to that is what makes you feel good during the day while you're doing your work. Like, what activity is it that you find your best space in?
We occasionally will get children coming through here, they're smiling, they're happy, and that those kids are in your caseload, and that you have done something right. To see the smiles on kids' faces, to be able to know that they are progressing and being able to, going to be a good adult, I guess, is, for lack of a better word, just someone who's going to be productive in society, and all. That makes me feel good when I can see that we have done some good in lives.
Now, you said you only had one more year left on your tenure with the National Tribal Child Support Association. What's the other side look like for you? Are you going to take it down, or are you going to ramp it up in another area?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. I've been in child support for 32 years now, so at some point in time, I'm going to go home and have a little bit of me time for retirement and all. But I'll always be part of that association. Anything that I can do to help, just kind of like the North Carolina Child Support Council and all. I was on that council for 6 years, and once you start, you can't just turn your back. You have to, if there's a need, you've got to step up and fill that need. That's kind of the way that I've always lived my life.
What's your work balance look like? You say you have 2 children. You have grandchildren as well?
No, I don't. I have grand dogs, if that counts, but no,
That does count.
My daughter is married, and she doesn't have children, and my son is happy to be single, as he tells me. So, but work balance is some days that's hard. Some days you don't get to do the things that you want to do, but I do believe that we all have to take that time for ourselves. I'm very guilty of not taking enough time, I will tell you that. But, if you get wrapped up in something, you want to see it through, or I do. That's just me. I just can't leave something hanging. I want to make sure that things are done. But again, at some point here in the next couple of years, I'm gonna hang up my hat and go home.
Yeah, no, you're like me. I say this sometimes. Sometimes I say it jokingly, but sometimes I say it very serious. And it's like, sleep is overrated.
Oh yeah.
That if you listen to your body, your body will tell you when to take it down, and
Right.
if you obey that message, you're going to be good. It's when you ignore that message,
Absolutely.
is where you run into trouble. And so when I say it sometimes, like, no, you got to take it. Yeah, I'm like, yes, you do. But you got to find your moments. If you're like me, I find my moments in the day. I find them on the weekend. I find moments, with my family. I have like you, I have a 90, well, I don't know what size dogs you have, but I have a 98-pound Doberman Pinscher who's 3 years old. And he's a Velcro baby. He's just always on the move. And those small moments where I get to just be outside with him and just, or watching him doing something in the house gives me that moment that I need to like woosah, to then get up and grind for another hour and a half or so before I look for another moment. And so I just hope that people
do that. You absolutely have to do that. I think I love gardening, and that's kind of an out for me. I can be out and piddle in the garden. It relieves a lot of stress, but it's also productive because I love a good homegrown tomato.
My last question for you, Sandy, is as you look at these programs, all of the programs, more specifically child support and TANF, and then even more specifically the EBCI community and other communities, what's the evolution like? What are you looking to see change and or get better years from now?
Well, we have a good working relationship with all the agencies on the boundary, but there's always room for improvement. I'm part of a team, a manager's team that through the Public Health and Human Services of Eastern Band, and we meet once a month with the secretary of that program. We are continually swapping resources. I think that's just so important because there's so many programs that do different things that can help your clients, and we all need to be more aware of those kind of things. I think the programs will continue to grow. I hope they do. Anyway, I know that a lot of child support programs are seeing a decline in their caseload. We've not seen that here. We've run pretty steady for the last 14 years that we've been doing this. So I don't see that happening, but I would like to see us have a little bit better outreach program. We don't have, the one that we have is through our daycare, the fatherhood program. I would love for us to be able to have one here in this office. I think that it's very important. We've done a little bit in the fatherhood and motherhood because we have a lot of mothers in our caseload that are non-custodial parents. So I would love to see that piece be incorporated more, I think, into our office here specifically.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, rolled right into, I said that was my last question, but I forgot about the fatherhood piece. Ask you whether or not you guys were running specific fatherhood programs within child support or next to child support, and what did those programs look like, and whether or not there was a need for help in developing those, because that's one of the things that we do, not only under my hat as Fathers Incorporated, but under my hat as the national director of the National Responsible Fatherhood Clearinghouse. That's what we do, go out and train and help people develop those programs. Is there a need for that?
Yes, I think there is a need here. We've talked about it a lot. We've not had the funding to quite do what we would like to, but I think that will change here since the feds have waived that 20% of the match that we have to do. So I am hoping that we can use some of those funds to do it. We have a fatherhood program right now through the Dora Reed Child Care Center. And so we have been asked to help with that, and we do participate in those events with them, trying to encourage more folks to come into the program there. But as far as just having one specifically for our office, specifically for child support, we don't. And that's something I'd like to see.
Well, Sandy, thank you so much. This information was great. I am looking forward to hearing your voice a little louder in the main space. I think there is a space for this conversation for folks to kind of understand, what child support looks like in other spaces and communities across the country. I think they can learn a lot from you. I think they can learn a lot from what's working, right? And how to change. One of the things that I have been having these conversations about as it relates to child support, and more specifically to the name change, right? Because we did it when we was in the state of New York. We changed the name of child support from the New York State Child Support Enforcement to the Center for Child Wellbeing. Now we're talking almost 15 years ago that we did that. And what I remember about that is that for the community of fathers themselves, it really didn't change a lot. It felt good at the top because it showed that we were trying to turn a corner,
Sure.
but the top never reached the bottom. And so one of the things that I've been kind of talking about in this conversation is to identify, particularly for non-custodial parents and more specifically for dads, to have a deeper and a more clearer explanation of what the service is. Right? And so if you say you're a service, then there should be services that are identified for them. And if you can't identify the services for them, then that is a problem, right? You have
That's
to
a
be
very good point. That is a very good point.
right, because that's what they're trying to figure out. If you say to them, "I'm a service," then they're in their minds like, "What is the service?" Right? Because the mission, in softer or maybe even harder terms of child support is, collection, debt collection. Right? And it's hard to make me understand that the IRS can provide me a service.
Right. Yes. Yes.
You can provide me a grace. That's very different, right? But you cannot provide me a service.
Right.
And so until we are able to define more clearly what the service is, it's going to be very hard and difficult to get a non-custodial father who already has a negative reaction to child support to believe that you're there to help them.
That's
right?
true. That's
and so
very true.
that is where I believe the deeper conversation has to take place across the board before we get to the cultural change that we need to have happen across child support.
Right. I agree 100%. You've given me something to think about today.
Yeah, that's from the brain of Kenny Braswell.
That's
all kinds
good.
of things.
That's good.
All kinds of things fall out of that. And hopefully I can bring some of that stuff to the conference that you guys are having. I'm really, really, really looking forward to
We
that.
are looking forward to having you.
I want to figure out how to tell your stories across the country, how to identify individuals that are doing great work in tribal communities across the country so that we can do spotlights on them and help folks understand what they're dealing with and how they're dealing with what they're dealing with if they're like any other communities across the country. As the clearinghouse director, I get to go to all corners of the country, from the most rural areas of the country to the most urban areas of the country. And there are nuances in all of those communities depending on what poverty looks different everywhere.
It does.
Right?
It absolutely
looks different. And the things that stimulate poverty also look different depending on where you're going. And so whether it's lack of transportation, lack of job opportunity, lack of education, lack of whatever, lack is the issue. And lack of opportunity is the biggest issue. And so that stuff has to be looked at a little more deeply, and I would love to extract the conversation around what is taking place in tribal communities across the country and what that looks like and how we could be of service to you. I offer that to you. So
I appreciate that, and hopefully while you're at our conference here in Cherokee, you can meet several child support directors, tribal child support directors, and hopefully have some conversation with them as well. Because I think that you would gain a lot just from the different tribes, the different ways that things are done. Again, it comes back to culture in a lot of places. Each tribe has their own culture and their own ways of doing things. So I think that that would be wonderful conversations for you to have, and I'll try to help you meet some of those folks while you're here in Cherokee.
Thank you. Appreciate you so much, and thank you for being a guest on I Am Dad podcast. Again, to all of my I Am Dad podcast listeners, you know how I like to leave you. Always be kind to others as you're kind to yourself, or you might find yourself by yourself. Always shoot high for your goals, because even if you miss, you'll be amongst the stars. And as my good friend Art Mitchell used to always say to me, it's nice to be important, but you know what? It's much more important to be nice. Till next Sunday, God bless.
Thank you so much for taking the time to spend with us. You've been listening to I Am Dad podcast. We hope that you have been informed, encouraged you to think, or even inspired your heart for the love of dads. The conversation does not end here. Come back and join us next week. Same time, same place. Or you can continue the dialogue on our I Am Dad Facebook page. We also invite you to listen to past episodes, learn more about us, and keep up with special activities by visiting IamDadPodcast.com. That's IamDadPodcast.com. Until next time, I leave you with this reminder of manhood from 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 11. When I was a child, I spoke as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. Because of this reminder, I will always understand that I am Dad, period.